All right. So everybody's going to get gaffled and ganked. That's what now we're starting to see. We're starting to see that what it was is that the baby boomers, um, fundamentally across most nations that were developed, wanted to have a very aesthetically pleasing latter half of their lives. So everything in the developed world is wonderful aesthetically. We have great aesthetics here in the Shire. The aesthetics are wonderful. The crackheads, though, all the drug addicts, though. Um, so there was something I was just taking a look at, and it's the 12 countries that basically there's no way that they're not going to collapse. Pakistan's one, Tanzania's one, Ethiopia's one. There's a couple of others in. It was this one specific. I think John Williams, I believe, is his name, real estate guy, going over the debt to earnings ratio of a lot of countries, and who's going to the IMF saying that if you don't bail us out, it's over. And there's just enough countries, like Ukraine is one, that their debt to revenues is so crazy that they can't really. There's no way that they could last for another few years. Um, what now? So I got to see that story. Right before that story, Zero Hedge has this whole thing about the performance of ESG. So it's turning out now that just like all do-gooder plots that require like god levels of money to make them work, um, that once again the do-gooders have ganked everyone. ESG turns out to have lost trillions of dollars in investment. They don't perform. It's aesthetics. It's just putting ESG on an oil fund. That's all it is. It's just like the weakest performers in a fund. You group them together and you say it's ESG, or it becomes, oh yeah, don't worry, this is totally green. You should invest in it. And the person doesn't even know what they're talking about. They're just being told by someone it's green and people should invest in it. That's where we're at. The full boomer gank. It's where you just lie to the boomer and you fool them. Like, I just still remember, was it like Joe, when there was it that the evil Kermit, the evil Russian Kermit, and he's like, nailed it, he goes, hey fellow Muppets, nailed it, Constantine Frog, and so it just, my friend, this guy, we used to joke around, I fool them, yeah, I will fool them, they will not know, they do not understand. I'll fool them. And so it's that's where we're at. We're at now the stage that everything is aesthetics and bullshit, and there's this tremendous amount of debt. And everybody's been buying on credit card for now decades, planet-wide, to try to look like some modern country that has malls and wealth and, oh, we produce so much, when really that's not the case. That there's all these nations that people don't really produce much in. A lot of American liberals don't get one of the most important things about the fact that people emigrate here illegally, is that they pay money. And they pay money to do it. The amount of money that they pay to do it, this obviously is going to have to be better money, or they're going to make better money once they're here. That's all. That has to be the idea. Now, do they or do they not? That doesn't really matter. It's the fact that they were able to put the money together in the first place, and that kind of money American. And so what that means that the money's there. So people in these places have access to some amount of money. So they're not starving, they're not refugees. It's just not true. And when you talk to people from those countries, you hear what they say about it. That these people are being like, oh, we're gonna come up in the United States. It's all good. Somebody told me it's green. Yeah, they fooled them. Yes. Go to America, you make lots of money, And so that, you see, it's just aesthetics. It's just lies. It's just this facade of lies. These people come here and they'll languish in poverty for about 3 generations. That's what the numbers show. Illegal immigrants languish in poverty for up to 2 to 3 generations on average. They don't suddenly, and then the kid goes into the army, or, I learned in escuela how to become un engineer. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And so we sort of live now in this fascinating world that it's liars, lies, fakeness, phonies. Something that was actually kind of interesting. I'm reading right now this book, and it's really getting into some things that I think one of the things definitely explains a lot about the Northwest and the left, certain aspects of the left, and that is the very idea of the mysticism of the human is divine. This very specific modernist liberal idea really it got pushed heavily by the Vedanta people, by the people who started bringing Hindu religion into the West. Whenever you study anything from secret societies, all secret societies at some point have, usually it's somewhere between about the 1930s through about the 1970s, they'll have books out that at some point, or mandanums or whatever, that they make you say Om, as if there's like some they're like, it's a super powerful word held in secret by the ancient, India, the Hindus remembered it from and so this all goes back to when the use of Aryan, and that it really does go back to that, this idea that there was this mother culture from which, all these groups spread, and that one of the last, the last groups to remember all the occult secrets were the Brahmin class of the Hindus. And so it's, when you look at the Democrats, if you know anything about them, they're into like Hindu religion. They really, really are into it, but it's always like this fake white tourist version of Hinduism. When you look at especially old liberal boomers who won't stop voting liberal and are like the boomerest boomers who ever, ganked a generation. Their kids are drug addicts, and their town is, real pretty, but literally, chock full of fucking drug addicts and tatted up trollops. That when you end up in these conversations, that you find that somebody with some, bunko, tattoo with Sanskrit on it's telling you that the truth is subjective, you really start to understand how backward and savage a lot of the thinking that's coming out of the liberal Northwest really is. Hence their love for riot and chaos. And so there's this book that I'm reading now that it touches on this enough as a historical thing, and it wasn't really, once you have enough of these secret mystical society books that you're like, why does this all come back to like the teachings of Guru Clean My Tushy? What is this? Like, and it's because like that's what this idea that the high Aryan Vedanta, blah 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 blah, and all this stuff that yeah. So soon, a lot of this window dressing as thinking and spirituality, it won't matter. The boomers are going to go into the grave seeing the world spiral into debt, chaos, and madness. And I think the future is going to be Mohammed bin Salman, Vladimir Putin, and the president of El Salvador. I don't know how many of you are seeing the president of El Salvador. The president of El Salvador, if I remember right, is a Libyan El Salvadorian, or I believe a Libyan El Salvadorian, and he isn't taking any of that shit. He's throwing everyone in fucking jail who does shit. You fuck around with him and the law, and you find out. And it's amazing. Like, it is people who are like, oh, mass incarceration. And it's one of these things of, don't make people go full El Salvador on you. Like, that's what now the saying should be. We should just go full El Salvador on that shit. That's what we should say. They've, what was it at first? It was the first round, I think, was something like 30,000 gang members were jailed. And so then they decided that they were going to mess with the president of El Salvador. And so he just locked down a whole part of the country, sent in the military, and arrested all the rest of the gang members. 70,000. I think it's 70 fucking thousand guys, tatted from head to foot, locked up. Amazing. Oh, that's civilization right there. Crime dropping like by double-digit percents in some parts. He said it's the safest nation in South America. It's not necessarily true. Now, has he made a gigantic dent in violent crime? Yes, he has. He has literally like crushed violent crime in some parts of the country. People could say at what cost? Oh, at the cost, it's probably a substantial cost to jail 70,000 gang members. But the reason I think this is going to be kind of the image of the future is because at some point there is going to come we're already starting to see it with constituencies in the United States of, I'm tired of this shit, just fucking throw them in a fucking box. You're starting to see it in little bits, but it's going to get bigger. Like, why don't you all just shut the fuck up and get a job? That kind of attitude. And it's with the amount of debt that's coming up. And then there's another weird thing. So a lot of this idea of government debt, well, one of the things is governments will have assets, but these assets will just be like empty buildings that they're planning to use, or land that they're planning to use, but now they haven't used it, so they got to sell it off. So there's going to be like unbelievable amounts of assets on the market as far as like real estate and stuff like that governments are going to have to get rid of. And and this idea like, oh, well, these huge companies will buy it. With what cash? And then why? Like, if you were the dirigible tycoon, why would you, what would you buy and why and where? Like, really, like, where in the United States would you buy just land or buildings that you thought, oh, somebody's going to pay for this? That's and more. So that's just something I've been having to I'm just rolling a lot of this around. This is really making me really cooking my noodle at the moment. Yeah, the ramifications of all this. All right, later.